one of the ways that we speak into their lives that I just wanted us to share. But before I share that, I don't have the board with me, but we will go through the reframing, how we reframe situations, okay? So that, because that is part of what you were actually addressing. And I'm just giving you a very short thing. It is just maybe 1 minute or 2 minutes, but the situation is the first, okay? Number one is the situation. When the situation happens, this is what happens. Like, it has happened, and it can happen to multiple people because situations happen to multiple people. Let me say an accident has happened. That is a fact. It is a situation that has happened, okay? It could be that you have fallen or anything bad. You've been terminated, you've lost your job, you've been heartbroken, maybe someone has walked out of your life, or you chose to walk out of your life. You have broken your own heart, but it is painful still. Yeah, we've been in those scenarios where you choose to break your own heart, but it's still painful. And so the situation has happened. Now, what happens is the situation alone cannot be able to, does not have the power to dismantle us. It is the decisions that we make. But how are the decisions made? What happens is the interpretation of that situation. How you interpret. Now, number two is the interpretation. The interpretation of that situation is what is going to give us the different outcomes. Because if I interpret that situation as, you know what, like so many people say, you kiss so many frogs. That is why it is important to read, to listen to material, because that, to even read the Bible, or that is how we recall and retrieve these things. So now you are reframing it by interpreting it. Okay? Because you cannot reframe what you have not interpreted. So now you're interpreting it as part of life. While there's another one who is saying, this is the end of life. It's like, I cannot breathe again. I cannot walk on this earth. It is too much. I cannot. And they are on their way to buy poison, while this one is seated in the house, dark, depressed, but they still have a hope for life. Now, what happened? The interpretation of the situation happened. So you empowered yourself, you empower yourself when you interpret positively. You disempower yourself by interpreting it negatively. And now this is what happens. After the interpretation, the behaviors are evoked. Because when you interpret, then it is going to determine what you are going to do next. Whether you're going to chill, whether you're going to pray about it, whether you're going to say, you know what, God, how long? I've suffered with this thing for maybe these months, this year, it has followed me along and I am tired of it. That is a person that has decided to actually interpret it the other way. But a person who has decided to interpret it the other way, remember, their action was going to buy the poison. Or their action was, have you seen those reels of a person walking sideways and saying that me going to my husband's workplace to beat up that woman who laughed behind while I was on phone with my husband? That is an action. It is an interpretation. Because there are other women that will call their husbands, and there will be women in the background laughing, or a woman in the background calling his name, and one will say, maybe that was the secretary bringing him some papers. That is a framing, it is an interpretation of a situation. While there is someone that is thinking, I have prayed to God and God has given me to her. You know, so now let me walk sideways while I go to, to just vandalize her and finish her off. So you realize that the situation, the fact has happened to more people, but the interpretation is personal. That is why it is so important to stay in community. Because then the encouragement, we become like coals of fire, that when you say out what you struggle with, and someone else, just like you said, and how many people have said they're struggling with the same thing? They are many. They are many. You realize, so now you're like, I'm actually not alone. It brings a little bit of consolation. It does not take away the thing, the issue, but it gives you a little bit of power to reframe it and decide to look at it differently, okay? And just decide, just like I usually tell people, you have packed your things, you've come to my office, and you're saying, I am not going back. And I'm like, by the time you packed them in the car and came to my office, that means we still have a chance to talk. So now let's be very vivid, okay? Now we start reframing the situation. And then after that, they're like, but coach, I think I should go back before he comes back. So we will finish this conversation another day. And I'm like, keep me updated. Mama, do they ever keep me updated? Yeah, nothing ever comes out. The next time I find out they have children. And I'm like, why? Because we reframed the situation, and so they knew that they had power to actually fight, or they had power to still engage, or they had not lost their soul completely. And yet there are those that come and they're like, by the way, I really want to fight for this marriage. And in my heart, I have seen their soul is dead. And I will never tell them that your soul is dead, and this is not, because if you tell me, I will strangle him in his sleep. He is a monster. He is a devil with horns. You know, by the time you call someone that you have ever loved such names, your soul is withering to a point of no return. Because then, let him do it again, he will see me. And then you tell me you still want to fight? Now I'm afraid for him. And according to the counseling ethics, you're supposed to inform the person you're worried about. You're supposed to call them and, you know, are you really safe? But of course, you can't do it in most of the cases, okay? But you see how reframing can actually empower someone, or you can give them time to reframe, and you're like, you know what, I will not announce to them that their soul is dead. No, that is not my job. My job is to facilitate the result that you want, and you have to find out for yourself that this result is not possible. You cannot find it from me. I cannot tell you that your marriage cannot work. No. You have to get to a place where, and by the way, most of them I tell them, the day you will discover that it is not working, you will never come to me. You will never even call me to ask me. You get it? But I need to be able to reframe the situation so that they can have the fighting capacity. You get it? So you realize that it sounds easy, but it's not easy, because it is filled with emotions, surrounded with emotions. We look at an accident, you're like, my leg is gone. Now what am I? I'm useless. And yet someone else is thinking, let's get a wheelchair. I can still go back to work. I can tell them to build a ramp, and I can still go back to work. So yeah, you're like, but why is this person enthusiastic about life? It's their framing and interpretation of what the situation is that has formulated the behavior. So behaviors are not natural things that happen. No, behaviors come through the sieve of our interpretation and our emotions. All right? And then let's flip to storytelling, because we're going to have around 7 people that are going to tell us. I gave you the assignment. You saw the assignment? Okay? Because we want to know, I want to know the transformation you bring into people's lives. And you should be able to articulate it clearly. And if you can't articulate it clearly, then we will help you to formulate it, because that is why we are here. Okay? And so as you go through that, I want us to be able to just shortly go through storytelling, because storytelling is one of the powerful tools that you can ever use. Most of you have seen me use stories. But before I started using stories in public speaking, most of the times I was like most of you, I was saying, but I don't have any stories. Like seriously. I felt like I didn't have anything. I used to see people speaking and they're using stories, and I'm like, but God, for me I don't even have a quarter of a story. And then I'll be like, but it seems people have to go through worse things in order to have stories. You get it? But there is a level of maturity, and I'm saying this because some of us, we're going to talk about this and you're not going to experience it now. But as you practice your journey, slowly by slowly, as in stories are going to sneak up on you. Why? Because you will see a statement and you will see a story that can particularly back it up, and maybe you will bring it out. All right? So I just wanted us to understand, as in, why do we even use stories? Number one, it creates enthusiasm. Okay? Enthusiasm. Has someone ever said, you know what? Let me just share this brief story. Do you know that even if you were absent-minded, you will turn and want to hear the brief story? Even if you were on WhatsApp scrolling, you'll be like, story? You know? So, yeah, it's something that creates enthusiasm, because then we feel like it's a thing that is taking us away from seriousness. You've been giving us serious talk, you know, and I don't know who told us that coaches and public speakers and counselors must be too serious and too tough. I've just learned this year to actually put on coats. I am a casual person all through and through. For those of you that have seen me, I will put on my ripped jeans, I will put on my, as in that is who I am. You get it? But some of us we are too uptight. That even when you're telling a story, it is too blunt. Like it is tasteless. Have you ever seen someone tell a story that is tasteless? And then you wonder, why did they tell the story? And you're like, but how is it connected? Where is it going? Okay? And yet it's supposed to bring enthusiasm. So that means if that story has never touched you, you have no point sharing with us that story. Because when you tell us, guys, let me just share with you the story. The way I speak it is with enthusiasm. That even me, the narrator, I'm enthusiastic about hearing my own story, me narrating it. You get it? So now, how much enthusiasm does it create in you? Because you're like, it's like Tim all the time when we're either at church and they call him to preach. The first thing is when they mention that it's Tim preaching, we will all laugh. Now, the moment he comes to hold the microphone and the way he will stand, we will all, but the moment he says, Kambabulire yokano, like literally we are slain, we are on the ground, because kano, it always does not end up being kano. It is always a hilarious thing. I don't know where he got it from. I have been with him for the past 25 years. Some of his stories, I'm like, but where is this coming from? Oh, he's telling a story. I know the story, but it's like I even don't know the story. I'm like, nah, yeah, you get it. So that means that even when you speak, because some of us are like, but I have said my story so many times. No, if you have not yet said it 1,000,000 times, you have not said it enough. Because not everyone knows you. Yeah? Not everyone in Kampala. There are people that don't know me. Even when I go to every place and, you know, everyone is like, you know, everyone. But there are places, there are people who don't know me. That is why we continuously build. That is why we continuously speak. That is why until the ends of the earth. So if we have not even conquered the small Kampala, the 7 hills of Kampala, and some of us are like, but tuchikuyenyo. Eh? Tetuna chikuba guys, tetunaba kuchikuba. So it creates enthusiasm. And then number 2, it creates animation. Has someone ever said a story and you felt like you were in their story and you went to where they were and you even envisioned it? Yeah? Like clearly, even when they say it, and there's a way our mind is very peculiar and our mind is very mysterious. There's a time I hosted someone, I don't even remember his name. That is how stories are. You remember the story, but you will not remember who told it sometimes. So now, he told a story of how he was abandoned. He was actually a street kid. Now I remember the story. He was a street kid. And so after being a street kid, that is how he was helped out of the streets, and now he's providing homes for other street children. But when he spoke the story, that early morning when I went to the street, I was on this, it was a petrol station. Clearly, I could see a petrol station. I could see, like, and even when I listen to the same story, I will have the same visualization. I don't know whether it happens to you. Some of you didn't read romantic novels. You know, the problem is now I'm talking to cross-generational audience. We have Gen Zs in here. We have millennials. We have Generation X. No, we don't have baby boomers. No, we don't have baby boomers here. We don't. So now the baby boomers, for them, they don't know anything about these things. But again, the generation, the Gen Zs, they see things over in 5D. I think they see things in 5D. But for me, I think millennial was the best, a bit composed stage, balanced stage. It was a bit balanced. But the Gen Zs, I don't know what they drink. I don't know what they breathe in. They're in another world altogether. But we have Gen Zs in this place, mind you. So we have to go slow on them. But what the stories do is they animate if they have been told well. Now, some of us, we tell our stories before it is time to tell our stories. It's like me telling you to write a book and you write a book about your life. Right? You are not so known for you to write a memoir that people will want to read about your life. You have to have achieved a certain status that people will run to the bookshops to buy a Michelle memoir, to buy an Oprah, because they're like, I have seen this woman, I have heard good things about them, I really want, as in, where do they come from? How did they develop to this person? You get it? Because this is a motivation, it's an encouragement, it is an inspiring story. Now, when you write your story right now, oja kudiba na you. You know kudiba? It will still, as in no one will want to read it. Because the first question people ask is, who are you? And what are you going to say? You know, I'm a coach. A coach from where? What do you coach in? Like, people don't have knowledge of who you are. And then they have not seen your resilience. They have not seen you consistently showing up year after year. They don't have a testimony about you. Until people can give a testimony and say, we saw her, we have seen her. It's been 10 years, it's been 15 years, it's been 20 years, and that person has actually stuck to what they are doing. Now, that is a vivid testimony that when you talk about your ups and downs, then people get to appreciate, okay? They're like, wow, she also went through this? She also went through this? It's like some of the people that hear my story for the first time, and then all of a sudden they're like, I have developed a new love for you. And I'm like, so the other time, what were you doing? So you didn't love me? Like, seriously, people have confessed. Like, for me, I've been following you. Kale, I've been following you. But now, it feels like everything you say makes sense. You get it? Why? Because they have seen me for the past 10 years, and all of a sudden, some of them are just getting to know my personal story, and then they're like, you went through this? There's a whole community of people claiming me in Nigeria or in Kenya. People are claiming I'm theirs. But whenever I speak Luganda, the Baganda are like, she's Ugandan. She's ours. She's ours. But even the Ghanaians are saying Bahati belongs to us. You know? But that shows you that the animation, when you speak about something, we are drawing pictures and we are not. And then the audience anticipation. Okay? The audience anticipation. Every listener is actually just waiting, like, what next? They want to, the piece of the puzzle, the animation. And, by the way, stories must climax. Yeah? You don't tell a story that starts on a low and ends on a low. No. It has to be a story that starts on a low and ends on a high. That people can even clap before you tell them why you're telling them the story, because they have connected why you are telling the story. You spoke the point. Remember the formula I gave you? You speak the point, you give an example, you tell a story, and point of action or action point. So you realize that when you come from that, now you've mentioned the point, and all of a sudden you're saying, you know what, let me just, so you're telling them, let me paint for you this picture. Now you're painting the picture. Now everyone is actually getting multiple points from what you are telling them. Responsiveness. Have you ever seen that every time you're sharing a story, people are throwing nuggets of their own? They're like, then what happened? Because they are sold. They're in the story. Because now they feel like, and then when you talk about something that feels so bad, then they even, by the way, sigh. You can literally see the highs and lows of people that are being told a story. Have you told children stories? Yeah, you people. Like real stories of vampires. Not those ones. So what do you be telling your children? Sorry, Jesus? How are they supposed to emotionally self-regulate if they don't know that vampires exist? Because I like how they tell their own stories. But even in the books, that even when, by the way, even the Bible story books, yeah, you're supposed to animate them. Yeah, you're supposed to animate them. That, you know, when the lion came out and it was, And all of a sudden, this person is, you know, they're either laughing or they're running away, or now they want to make it up game. Now, that is the problem. Whenever I tell my children stories, we end up playing instead of reading, because the reading stops. When you tell of a vampire and you come in the name of a vampire, you know, they want you to hide under their blankets so that you, you know. So, but the responsiveness. And the responsiveness does not have to be in words. In churches, I know people can clap, people can do what, but in audiences, do you know even typical silence is responsiveness? That people were giggling, they were chuckling, they were saying this, but all of a sudden, phew, you just know that, yes, it is landing, okay? And it is landing well. And sometimes you will see that everyone now has started speaking to another. Have you ever noticed that? You're saying a story, but everyone is bothered, and now they're speaking to another. Like, was she the one who got an accident or the other one? Now they want to clarify with a neighbor. That means they're in the story, they are sold, and yes, that is responsiveness. Because then sometimes you can even do it as a tact to see who is responsive. And all of a sudden you're like, guys, come back, let me tell you what exactly happened. And then you clarify it, because you want to move with the journey, you want to move the journey with them, and you want to be able to impact with them. Then it affects the memory. Stories are easily memorizable than just words that you speak. Yeah? When you tell me a story, for example, when Coach Molly said that she had the picture on her phone, I clearly feel like, just thought if I had a picture of someone I didn't want to see. Like, how would that feel? Like, it would be sickening. It will be very... And did you see how she threw her phone down? How she said that, you know, I felt like throwing my phone down? Now, she has animated it. Some of us were like, I even threw my phone down because like the picture was too much to look at, and I didn't feel like looking at it. And I was like, but who are you? Sometimes we have to be able to even show action while we are telling these stories. When someone says that she broke my heart, and you break, I feel that. By the way, I will even hear a sound in my head. I will feel... I will feel like a heart, yeah. Yeah. When you tell me that your heart became squishy, I will feel like it can, you know, it became too soft that it made it was sponge, it made no meaning. But why? When someone can memorize that. And let me tell you, there are a few people who are going to put their nannies, exes, not even exes, just general people that they don't like on their screenshots. Because that memory sank. Eh? Yeah? And then when someone is laughing about something, and that is when someone uses a story and they put in humor. You know, someone can tell a very sad story, and they include humor in the story. And you are oscillating between sadness and laughing. And that is an art. That is an art that comes with maturity. That's an art that comes with practice. That is an art that comes with saying yes to opportunities to speak. If you're still running away from opportunities, you're going to take longer to even come by this, okay? So you make sure you use humor in your story. The creativity, make sure you're creative. Make sure you are creative. There's a time I was telling a story about, and I even amazed myself when I told the story. I remember there's a time where my brother Alphonse used to, you know how boys can spoil things? I see that with my boys. Right now, you buy a toy, at night they will sleep with it in bed and cover themselves. The following morning it is broken. It doesn't matter. So now I started looking for second hand. Yeah, you go to these UK people that import. That is where you buy bicycles instead of buying them from supermarket. Because the ones from supermarket, like helmets, everything is spoiled. So now you go to the UK used and you tell, is this strong? Yes, it is strong. But still, they will always find a way. So now I was talking about the point of how God never Let us crush even when we have gone through very weird situations. And I gave an illustration of how my brother, we got this, my mother got tired of buying him toys, and he went to a shop, and I remember vividly it was an Arab shop. And so in this Arab shop there was this, and she was like, you know what, he spoils them, but let me buy another one. You know how parents can be merciful. So she buys another one, but she thinks in 2 days it will be broken. So brings it home, and literally, like, you know how, like, someone will show you that I am just going to end it. And she would carry it whenever he's frustrated and put it down. But whenever he threw it down, it would just move. So 1 week, 2 weeks, a month has gone, the car is not broken, but every day, out of frustration, it is being carried and thrown down. So you realize that action of telling that, you know what, God always gives us second chances, that we are never broken, even when the enemy comes at us and we are supposed to be crushed and broken. When he carries you and puts you down, he will only be amazed that you're still moving. And when he carries you the next time, puts you down, he thinks this time mumaze, you come out moving. You get it? Now you realize that it's possible that you will forget the point I made, but it's possible you will not forget the car and how it came out moving all the time until we gave it out to another person. That car never broke. I don't know how it was made. Okay? So, so you realize creativity, okay, when you are doing that, and the immediacy to know that, you know, there are people who will tell stories in fourth person, in third person, and you know, I had an uncle's uncle, but their cousin and they, like their sister, you know, and it just feels like it is too far away from you until we are tired, because then some of us don't know who a cousin is and who a nephew is. Like seriously, for some of us who have grown up in nuclear families, like tight nuclear families, when you tell me of, like seriously, a cousin is a boy or is a girl? I don't, they are what? They are unisex. Niece and nephew. And then a cousin? It's for everyone. I am learning that today. So now, if you tell us of a cousin who had a nephew who had a niece, like clearly, do you see how detached from the story you are? We are also detached from you. You have no business telling us a story in fifth person and in fourth person. But when you tell us that it's something that happened in your seeing, because there is telling us, you remember the people who used to see movies and then they would come and they narrate them to other people. I was one of those. And I was so serious, and you cannot challenge me. Are you the one who watched, or I am the one who watched? And by the way, I watched from the neighbors, not even my own home. And then there is someone who came and had a better version than me. And I was much older, by the way. So this, until now, when I think about that boy, I'm like, you know what, the devil is a liar. Let me tell you, the boy came and told us a story. I was with my sister, the one who follows me. And it timed so well when our family was in the middle of a breakup. And he came with his stories about what he had heard and what he had seen, and it was a complete movie. Do you know, I saw a picture, and you know, your mother, like there was a circle on her head like this, like she was the target, and you know, like seriously. And by the way, while he narrated that, the reason as to why I actually believed him is because while he narrated that, we were going through a battle in our home that our mother could not even sleep in her bed. Now, so in my heart, I'll be like, but how did he know? Kumbe, he was narrating a movie. So now, because I've grown up thinking I'm an introvert, so I chase people very quickly away. I don't entertain people. So I let him speak for some time, and then after some time, I was like, you know what? I think it's better we go through our own issues, minus any external influence. And so he read it from me, and so he decided to go through my sister. And you know, my sister, I was the one, you know, controlling her, because she is the sanguine. She used to be the sanguine of the family. Her feet do not touch the ground. She gets excited so quickly, and you know, everyone who wants to manipulate goes through her. So I told her, I don't want to see you with that guy again. And so, but you know, he's telling us the things that are happening. Kumbe, he's narrating movies. Until I went to these disc sellers, and I told them, I want a movie that goes like this and this and this and this. And I also had a mind of, I went to a street person and narrated, you know, and I told them, is there a movie like that? And this person gave me a Van Damme movie. Wow. A Van Damme movie. You know, and I told that guy that next day he was branching back into a compound. I told him, you stop there, you stop there. I was like, Katina kozechi, daye wamwe. Bwetuna kwagala tujja kuita. And you know, he had to go back, and that was the end of, yes, we went through our own turmoil with our mother fleeing away, with me. That is the first time I held the phone, because I was not that mature. I should have been around 19. And that is the time, actually, I had come into contact with Tim, and Tim was mentoring me. He was my boss. And so he was like, you know what, whatever you have told me going through in your home, get this phone. In case there is any problem, call me. Put it under your pillow. Make sure that it is on. In case you need to communicate to anyone, make sure that at least someone knows. Because he knew I was the firstborn in my home. We were in danger. My siblings were in danger. We didn't know what to do. But you realize that the immediacy of that story, that it happened to me, it concerns you. Then I want to know. But if it had happened to an uncle's uncle, you know, that I didn't see, then what are you telling me that you didn't see? Okay, so there has to be immediacy, okay? And then the heartwarming. Stories are quite heartwarming because people feel good being heard, and then people feel good seeing themselves in the other people's stories, even if it's just a segment. But for as long as they're like, hey, they also went through that. Now I've told you this story, and you know, for some point, there is, I have been humanized in your brain, right? That there are some people that will look at some speakers and put them on high horses, white horses. But when you speak about your story, you become human. And when you become human, you are consumable. And when you become human, you are relatable. When you become human, you are impactful. Because I'm like, if she could go through that, if she can be that, that means I can't be that. That means you have come to my level, and that is how it warms my heart. Okay? The people that are going to speak to us. But when it comes to storytelling, number one, show. Make sure that you show what I told you about. When you're talking about a broken leg, make sure that it's a broken leg. When you are talking about, you know, I developed goosebumps, be like, yes, empewe kuisemo, and develop the goosebumps. Because some of us understand better when you illustrate. Yeah, instead of just saying, then I was there, I got the goosebumps. I'm like, but did you get the goosebumps? Yeah, you know, it becomes, you know. So make sure that you show when you are speaking, and then help. Do not mention a story if it's not going to be helpful. The story has to end in help. That someone has to pick something out of that story, and then it has to amplify the message. The story should be able to articulate what you are saying better than if you just used normal words. Yeah? Because you could have used normal words, and we could have understood the point. But if you want to amplify it, then you use a story. Then we will understand it in dimensions and facets, and the depth and the darkness and the light. Like, it will be a spiced up thing that amplifies everything. And then relate. Make sure that it is relatable to the point that you are making. It is relatable to the people that are in the crowd. Because there is you, by the way. This is what happens. Back in the day when I just began, I used to speak, and because in speaking you're supposed to measure the temperature of the room or the kinds of people and the audience that you're talking to. Now just imagine you go to mass market kind of audience, and you're talking about jacuzzi, and you're talking about as in the kind of life other people live. Or you're giving examples, but every time you give examples of high-end, not the low. The low. Now, for me, it's the viewers that actually told me. On Masuze Mutia. They told me, but we love you too much. You really impact our lives. You're transforming our lives. But the examples you give are of people that have money. Yes. The examples you give are of people that have money. Because when you give an example or you tell a story where there is a flashing toilet and yet someone is in Katanga and they don't even have a pit latrine, you get it? Then there is a bit of discordance. They see themselves in the point, but they don't see themselves in the story. Now it is not relating. That means when you're going to high-end people, choose your stories wise. When you're speaking to people that are low, when you're speaking to secondary school students, yeah, you should be able to speak in stories that they can be able to understand. So there is also age-appropriate stories. Jargons, slangs, you know, things that they actually understand. So relate and then enjoy. Guys, we can tell. If you're not enjoying your story, we are not enjoying it, full stop. If you're not enjoying, because when you are enjoying your story, do you know, you're enthusiastic to share it. You don't even forget. There's a way your mind is locked in. And you're like, you know what? I've even remembered this. Let me take you back a bit. Now you are enjoying it. You're taking us back a bit, but we are all also going back a bit. And by the way, we are very precise. Our brains are very smart. We have pressed rewind and we have all arrived at the same place. And now we are moving. Now if we move a little bit and then you say, now let me remind of this, we all pause. So that you can detour, and then when you come back and no Tulavulant, you are back, then we are pressing play. Because, my friend, no, you're not leaving us. We are in this story, we love it more than. So enjoy your story. If you don't enjoy it, we are not enjoying it. Even if it's the story, a bad story. Yeah? Do you know that you can enjoy a bad story? Because you're out of it, right? You can show the emotions and how dampened you were and how sad you were in that moment, but still you are enjoying it. Just like she was saying, is it enjoyable for your mtima to be kusabulad? Yeah? But again, she was saying it while laughing. Like she's enjoying her story. She's like, but I am here. I am still alive. Yeah? My heart I didn't bury it. It didn't go. You know, it didn't disappear. It is still. So when you show is, what do I want them to see or hear? You ask yourself, okay? And when you help is, how will telling this story help them? That is the question you should be able to ask yourself. How will telling this story help them? When you show, you ask yourself, what do I want them to see or hear? All right? Because then, part of what I see is what I draw for you to see. So you realize that there is something you see and hear. Okay? So whatever I am painting, you are grasping. Okay? So what do you want them to see or hear? Then when we go to amplify, you ask yourself, what do I want them to imagine? Amplifying is imagination. You're like, oh God, what if he had died on the street? Now they are imagining, eh? That is how you find us. We are listening to the story, but we are crying. You know? And now you're thinking, what if it was my child? Yeah, that is how it is amplified. Now it is getting emotional. What do I want them to imagine? Then relate, what do I want them to feel? When it is relatable, it is about feelings, okay? What do I want them to feel? Because feeling is a fact. And when it comes to enjoying, how can I make the story fun and unforgettable? That is the question you should be able to ask yourself. How can I make this story fun and enjoyable? Because we must enjoy, guys. We go into public speaking, or people come, they have their own sorrows, they have their own, and then you're coming here and you want to make all of us gloomy. You are allowed for some seconds to make us gloomy, and then take us to a high, and then bring us, keep oscillating us, but make sure by the time you end, we are here. We don't want you to end, and you're like, Munang awe nalabida. Like the movies of these days, I don't know who directs the movies these days. The film stars are dying. And then when they die, it is the end. And sometimes it ends without anyone dying. And you're like, yeah, someone is cheating me. You know, our money. Like, sorry? But it is not good suspense at all. We loved our clinchers, our Van Dams, that a bomb would blast and then he would come out like a robot. And we'd be like, yeah, that's my guy. You know? So now, guys, even if you're a Gen Z, don't end us in suspense. Don't leave us with a film star dead. Eh? Because now, if you tell a story, for example, the story that I told you, which story can I tell? But you are the film star, right? Now we are watching our Van Damme. Eh? Now the Van Damme is speaking, and after that he said, now when we went to Japan, Simanyi Hiroshima, Simanyi where we trained, and after that, when the bomb came, and I died. We are like, go away, you're not our film star. It seems it's another person that had to narrate this. Eh? Yeah, you cannot. And then after that, you know, I ended up depressed, you know, and then after that I was, you know, in Butabika, and you know, that is how the story ended. So you're still in Butabika. Tell us how they came to inject you and you fought. Yeah? Tell us how you just decided one day and said, enough is enough, I am coming out. And you know, and you're like, guys, I am here impacting the world, traveling the world. And we are like, yeah, that is what we want to hear. So don't leave us on a low. And I think, let me end with that, because if I go past this, I will not finish. But when it comes to laughter, laughter is like a windshield wiper. It doesn't stop the rain, but it helps us to keep going. So when you make people laugh, it doesn't take away their problems, okay? But it clears their perspective. It makes it clear that they can see that there is hope, that they can also be well, okay? So when you infuse a sense of humor, and some of you, when you become speakers, you lose your sense of humor. But when you are alone with your buddies, you're lifting legs, you are everywhere, doing everything. You have a sense of humor that is off the hook. You don't even need to practice it. But when you come in front of people, you are keeping it. You're like, people must see that bad side of you. You call it a bad side. No. We want the whole of you. The bad and the good and the ugly, we want it all. If you're the kind who eats on Lusania, let's see you eating on Lusania. Just imagine if content creation had not come, what amount of stupidity would have stayed in people's heads and foolishness? Hmm? Of people eating with 2 fingers, you know? Natawa ukuroni, eh? Naduka. You look at them and they're like, Asahel is 2 years, you know? But a mature person of 50 years old, you know? Running from the wave and overtaking the wave, you know? And you're thinking, God in his wisdom, he gave us the fullness, you know? The fullness. And then you look at Kathy while she's selling her yogurt, and she's too serious. You're actually supposed to learn some stories, you know? Go to kids, sponsor some storytelling, you know, and create some, tell them, I want to do a storytelling, you know, bash in this. Do you know how many parents would pay? You know? And they would sit there and everyone has a yogurt, and you know, every parent has bought, and you're reading and you're animating and they are laughing and they're calling, Auntie Kathy, Auntie Yogurt, please, Crimson, come back. Yeah, but Kathy is there, brought up by baby boomers, and is thinking the best way is, you will drink my yogurt. And then Kathy will tell you, but content creation is hard. Eh? Content creation is hard. Put yogurt in a blender, put in smanny blueberries and what, stir up, and then drink and say, content creation is done. How many things do you use yogurt for? Yogurt is put in porridge, yogurt is put, show us all those things, show us how to consume yogurt. Eh? Coffee. Yeah? And then you want to be serious because the man that will marry me wants to see a serious woman. When they, you know, when they see me fooling around, they will say, but that is not marriage material, my friend. You can fool around all you want, but if someone sees you and they fall in love with you, they will fall in love with you with your madness. Yes. But even if you're serious and someone is not supposed to love you, they will not love you. They will look at you and they'll be like, this will be a source of stress. I'm not looking for stress. Okay, guys, who goes first? I'm selecting, right? Yes.
I'm passionate about self-esteem and confidence, especially for women and the young girls, most especially teenagers, those that maybe, I think from the time a girl starts to understand until to, I think like the end of their teenage years. So the major reason as to why I'm focusing on that is because I have experienced it both sides. On the side of the women, I've seen my mom go through that. I can really tell, I wouldn't want to say this, but I really have to say it. I have seen her struggle with self-esteem, stay in a marriage, which she's still in, and like a lot has been done to her, but because she's like, no, I have to bring up my kids. Of course, she grew up with a stepmother, so she's like, I don't want my kids to also grow up with a stepmother because she knows how it feels. But then in that process of doing that and saying all that, it made her lose herself. Like up to now, her compromise, thank you. So like she can't do anything on herself, on her own, because she's like, now when I leave, first of all, in my father's home, my mother is not there. So now I'm going back to my, to my home, to a stepmother. So let me just stick to this man. I'm not working, so clearly I can't even, I stopped working when I just gotten this man. Now it's been long. Like clearly she's like, no, I have no way I'm going. And of course, growing up for me, I didn't really see it as a problem because I was still a kid. But then after a certain time, I left home and started staying with my uncle. And hopefully, I thank God for that, because if it wasn't for my uncle's wife, I don't think even right now I would be able to stand. In fact, I wouldn't be in this class, because at least she helped me. Because growing up with my mom, she used to tell me I'm ugly because we are two kids. And by then, my brother, he's like, and I believed it. My mother, we are two kids. So she would be like, my boy is so handsome. I wish he was the girl and you were the man, So, yeah, so now I came to high school from the village in Bushenyi, joined high school in Kampala. So I'm like, okay. First of all, I'm from a village school. Now I've joined schools this side. Now I'm looking at kids, of course, who have been studying in these Kampala schools. So first of all, that alone tells me, now you, from deep down in Ishaka village, really, what do you think you're going to, do you even think you're going to pass? And surprisingly, in the village, I was among the top 5. But now coming this side, I'm like, first of all, the English these kids are speaking, exactly. Me, I was learning, they were teaching me in Runyankoli. Now this guy is here. Yeah, because that's the way you will understand. So I'm like, now these guys, they are using English. Okay, I'd learned some English, but of course with that accent, that Chinyankole accent, which people always laugh at. I'm like, So now that alone put me backwards. I'm like, no. And you know what? I stopped like concentrating on my books because it entered my head. I'm like, no, from where I'm coming from, and kids who are coming from Kampala parents, impossible. I can't compete with these guys. And then, of course, being that I was fat, I think I shared it some time back. I was so fat. Then all the kids in my class were so small, so I'm looking like as if I'm the mother of the kids in class. So like it was so much on my head. So I'm like, you know what? Let me leave things to be the way they want to be. People had their OBs and OGs, me as just there. From some village school deep down there. I'm like, okay, it's okay. So, but the good thing is, since I was staying with this auntie of mine, by God's grace, she had decided from Gayaza High School, and of course, you know how Gayaza girls be. So she started instilling in slowly, but she's like, Sandra, you're enough. The way you see that size, that is okay. That size is okay. That size is okay. Don't worry. Whatever people are telling, of course, at first I wasn't sharing anything with her until I think she noticed how, I was performing and everything. So she asked me, then I opened up to her. She told me that shouldn't worry you. It's okay. You're enough the way you are. God loves you the way you are. Your parents love you the way you are. And in my head, I'm like, my parents, my mom tells me I'm ugly. And you're telling me they love me the way I am. I was like, anyway. So slowly by slowly with her words, I started gaining slowly until. So now looking at how my mom was, of course, after I came now started staying with my auntie, that's when I noticed, okay, so actually women are not supposed to be like this. Women are supposed to speak. It's not all about, okay, what has he said? To the point that even if she has some money, she doesn't want to spend it because she's like, he will ask me, where did I get this money from? So I'm like, okay, but my auntie spends the way she wants. Of course, she was working. Of course, the husbands were giving her money. I'm like, no one is going to ask her, where are you spending this? Why are you buying this dress? Because she's working, it's her money. So I'm like, okay. So it's okay for a woman to talk. It's okay for a woman to know, to spend exactly their money. So slowly by slowly. So now with this experience, I'm like, okay, at least I need to encourage women, especially mothers, to mind like the kind of words they tell their kids. Because for me, I had two effects of how my mom talked to me. Now I'm imagining if I had not met this auntie of mine, how would I have been up to now? And yeah, I went and told her back, I think around campus, I was like, by the way, the words you told me, they really killed me. She's like, oh, I didn't know. Surprisingly, she didn't know what she was doing was going to impact me. So with that, I feel like I need to help the women. Of course, mainly it starts from the parents to mind the kind of things they tell their kids, how they bring up their kids. And also, there are certain things I think mothers shouldn't really be showing to their kids. There are really things that I wouldn't say, but I think I saw from my mom, and I'd be like, no, this is not something I would want my girl or my boy to see or maybe to know. So it all starts with the parents, and then back to school. Of course, now when it comes to school, I had my school story of the size and everything, and no one cared. So to also tell these girls, it's okay, yes, the size is going to be there. But the size will go, and even if it doesn't go, it is okay. No one said you're not supposed to be fat, you're not supposed to be short. Whether you're short or fat or brown or dark, it is really fine. Because, yeah. So, majorly, for me, that is what I want to do with the women and the girls.